and you say you see it on your eyelids. You see the old movie on your eyelids?
Yes.
So that's different from using your mind's eye to imagine things. That's a different experience?
Yes. It's got a really different texture to it. It's like I said, it's like an old movie. I can see even in my brain, I can see like it's going through sprockets and just kind of the little jitteriness of the projection.
Join the Discovering Your Mind Facebook group and enjoy discussions, ask questions, and participate in the podcast in fun and unique ways. Aphantasia is a condition characterized by an inability to visualize mental images in one's mind. If you have just discovered that you or someone you love has aphantasia, or if you're just fascinated by the subject in general and love learning more about it, you are in the right place. The Discovering Your Mind podcast delves into all aspects of the mind's eye, including aphantasia, hyperphantasia, and everything in between. Welcome to the Discovering Your Mind podcast, brought to you by shanesbraindomain.com. I am your host, Shane Williams, also known as Shane's Brain, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Cole Williams. Hi, Cole.
Hi, how's it going?
And today we're talking with the one and only Paula Puffer, who we just met a few seconds ago. How you doing there, Paula?
Oh, I'm doing great. It's been a really good day. So I'm really excited to learn a little bit more about this subject.
All right. Sounds good. To start out, why don't you just tell us a little bit about what you do for a living?
I work in the oil and gas business. I am technically my title is GIS coordinator, but I do way more than that. I do customer support for both my field guys and the back office here in Houston.
Do you enjoy it?
I do. I love the fact that I get to talk to people all over the United States. And I not only work with the back office, I work with vendors, I work with my field guys. I love my field guys. They are fantastic. Go Pipeliners.
It's not a football team, is it?
No, it's not a football team. It's not a football team. Anybody who works on a pipeline is called a pipeliner. So
I figured it just sounded like something. So
it does sound like a football team, though, like the Oilers or something like that.
All right. What about your other interests and hobbies? What else floats your boat?
I have a side gig called juicyjournaling.com. I do all kinds of journaling. I do bullet journaling, art journaling. You're just straight up writing journaling. I like mixed media art. I do painting. I make stickers, which you can get on juicyjournaling.com. I do a lot of different things. I guess I would consider myself a polymath in that regard.
In this episode, we will be referring to what we call the Apple graph. If you would like to view the Apple graph to play along and better understand what we're talking about, you can find it on shanesbraindomain.com in the Aphantasia and Beyond section. If you are unable to view the Apple graph for whatever reason, it is a graph divided into 6 sections. In the number 6 section, there is a very detailed image of a red apple. In the number 5 section, it is the same image but with less detail. Number 4 is still in color but has less detail and more basic shapes instead of detailed hues and gradients. Number 3 is the less detailed apple but in gray tones without the color. Number 2 is a simple outline of the apple. And number 1 is blank, indicating no visualization whatsoever. This is called aphantasia.
So from what I understand, Paula, you have no idea what you're getting yourself into here, do you?
No, I don't. But that's all okay, because I like to learn.
No, that's good, because you're gonna learn a lot about what we're talking about, and you're also gonna learn a lot about yourself in this process.
Okay.
So to start out, I want you to visualize a red apple in your mind.
Okay.
Okay. We're going to share a little graph with you here. And I want you to tell me which one of these apples best represents what you saw in your mind's eye.
4.
So how much have you heard about aphantasia before?
Until your dad posted the call for guests, I had never heard of aphantasia nor hyperphantasia. So it was kind of interesting. I went and I looked at Wikipedia long enough to figure out what it was. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to go on this journey, and that's all I want to know, right? Just that little brief piece.
Okay, yeah, that's good. So, yeah, you've probably seen then when we're talking about aphantasia, we're talking about no mental imagery whatsoever. We often call it a blind mind's eye.
Right. So what we really focus on, and why we just interview anybody and everybody who's willing to be interviewed, is because what we've discovered is that everybody is 100% unique. I discovered aphantasia when I was in college. I discovered that I had it. And so ever since then, I've just been really kind of fascinated with it. And over the years, especially recently, I've developed this questionnaire that we call the Discovering Your Mind Protocol. Basically, right now, there are 4 basic categories that exist. Again, everybody's unique. So beyond the categories themselves, everybody kind of is in a category of their own. But basically, we have aphantasia, which is no visualization in the mind whatsoever. We have hypophantasia, which is what I've always called almost aphantasia. It's people who can visualize, but barely. It's usually just a simple outline, and it's very fleeting. It doesn't last very long. And then sometimes people with hypophantasia will receive very quick flashes of images that last like a second. So there's that. And then the most general category is just phantasia, people who can visualize.
It's not the Mickey Mouse thing. That it's more interesting than the Disney show, actually.
I really liked Fantasia 2000. I thought Fantasia 2000 was pretty good.
Well, you're wrong, but we'll move on.
Sorry, Cole has strong feelings about Fantasia. All right, and then the 4th category is hyperphantasia, and that is extremely vivid mental imagery, to the point where it looks just like reality.
Okay,
and they also have extreme abilities to mess around in their imaginations. And some of them describe it as like a whole separate universe where they can do whatever they want in there.
Interesting.
Okay, so the first thing we'd like you to do is visualize a chicken in your mind. Is it like looking at a picture, or more of just a thought, or something else?
It's like looking at a picture.
Is it in color or black and white?
Color.
Are the colors vibrant or muted?
Vibrant.
Is it 2D or 3D?
2D.
So can you describe that anymore? Is it kind of just like looking at a flat picture?
Yeah, it's like looking at a photograph for me.
Oh. So I'm assuming since it's 2D that you can't really do any rotation, like rotating it, seeing it from different angles, or can you?
Can't do that.
Was the image still, or was there movement?
It was still.
Okay. Can you add movement if you want?
Yeah, I can.
So
I can picture them walking along, or hopping up on the back end of a tractor or a piece of equipment as I'm trying to chase them into the chicken coop.
Okay. Can you take one of those chickens and make it fly?
Very awkwardly.
Okay.
Yeah, they're not very good flyers.
No, they're not.
Is the image more clear with your eyes closed or your eyes open?
With my eyes closed.
Okay. Is there much of a difference? Can you do it with your eyes open?
Yeah.
But closed is better?
Yeah. because I don't have any visual distraction when I close my eyes.
Okay. Do you see the chicken in your mind, or is it projected out in front of you?
It's just in my mind.
Is it solid or transparent?
Solid.
Can you put a vest and a tie on the chicken?
Not very easily, but yeah.
Okay.
I have the ability. I can picture just the long tie with a little chicken vest. I can also see it with a bow tie too.
All right.
One swanky chicken.
It's a snazzy chicken.
If the chicken made a sound, could you hear it in your mind?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we just asked you to visualize an animal that you have a lot of experience with, that most people have a lot of experience with. I am now going to ask you to visualize some animals you're probably not very familiar with.
Okay.
And all I want you to do is describe to us what you saw. Okay.
Okay.
So the first one is a leafy sea dragon.
I see a seahorse-shaped body, and it's got little projections on along the spine. The tail's kind of curled, and it's attached to a rock.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. That was a really cool description. Sounded like you were pretty spot on with that.
I have to admit, I'm a bit of a nerd, and when I was a kid, I used to read the encyclopedia, so I knew what it was.
Okay. Well, hopefully with some of these we can stump you.
Okay.
Okay, what about this next one? A Sri Lanka frogmouth.
I think it's a fish. I'm seeing a long body, maybe a foot long, kind of a bottom. I want to say it's a bottom feeder.
Okay, last one. I want you to visualize a Glaucus atlanticus. Just explain what you see.
I'm getting a picture of it like a sea turtle. I don't think that's right, but that's what I've got in my head.
We do these questions to learn a little bit about how the creative mind works with different people, because it's interesting to see what your mind does when it doesn't have as many details or as many things to go off of, what it will latch onto and create based on what you have.
And for those of you listening who are curious to what the actual creatures look like, Google it.
All right. I want you to visualize any room.
Okay.
Okay. Can you zoom outside of that room to visualize the entire exterior of the building?
Yes.
Okay, what's that like?
I'm in my old bedroom in the farmhouse that I grew up in. And the house is a 1930s house. And we have a big maple tree on the southeast corner. And I go out the corner and away from the tree, and I can see the front of the house. And it's a 2-story house. And there's a big porch on the front of it. There's a deck off the south side of the house. The house is kind of a gold color, and the window sashes are painted white. And there's a dormer up on the roof where the attic is.
What about the entire neighborhood? Could you zoom out to see the whole neighborhood?
Oh, yeah. If I zoom across to the field, there's 2 houses to the north, and there's 2 houses to the south. It's about a mile long stretch. All 5 houses are surrounded by soybean and cornfields.
Interesting. So are you doing this from like you're standing on the ground, or are you looking at this like an aerial view?
I'm above the ground, but I'm not that high off the ground.
Okay.
I'm probably no more than like 10 feet off the ground.
Did you grow up in a pretty small neighborhood then?
I lived in town until I was in the 4th grade, and then we moved out to the farm.
Okay.
So there's, if I was in my neighborhood in town, there would be a lot more houses because.
All right, because that's what I was thinking. Because when I visualize my neighborhood growing up, I have to do it from an aerial view because there's so many houses, it's impossible to see them all. But it sounds like you didn't have to do that because just hovering like 10 or so feet off the ground, you could see most everything.
Yeah.
Now, lastly, I want you to zoom out even further from that neighborhood to visualize the entire surrounding city or town.
Okay.
Can you do that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How can you describe that? How detailed or accurate do you think that image is?
I have a pretty good image of what my town looks like from above. Only because I do GIS work and I play in maps a lot, so I get to see things from above. But I can see where the water tower is. I can see where the river comes through my hometown.
Okay, the next thing I want you to do is visualize 3 dots. 3 blue dots.
Okay.
Now visualize 9 blue dots.
Okay.
Now visualize 100 blue dots.
Okay.
You still with me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and now lastly, I want you to visualize 1,000 blue dots.
When it comes to the 1,000, I turn it into a cube.
Really?
Yeah.
That just naturally happened? Hold on.
Not naturally, but it's like if you try and visualize 1,000 dots, it's very hard to visualize that. But if you put it into a cube, then it's a contained form.
Hold on, let me try it your way. That is much easier. Yeah. Paula Puffer cracked the code.
It started out, the 3 dots were a triangle. 9 dots, was that the next one?
Yeah.
That was its first square. And then 100 was a square, but the 1,000 went to a cube. I work with a lot of data. And what I do is when I'm working with the data, I look for the patterns.
Okay.
So I tend to look at things in terms of patterns and repeats and things like that. But I've also got a spatial component too, because I work, because that's part of what I work with. So
does effort play a role in how well you can visualize something?
Sometimes people will describe something and I can't quite visualize it. But other times they will say something really off the cuff and immediately a picture will pop into my head of what that looks like.
Okay.
So it kind of comes and goes a little bit.
Okay. In general, when you close your eyes, what do you see?
That is an interesting question because a lot of times when I close my eyes, I see patterns on the back of my eyelids.
Okay.
I also see pictures sometimes, like pictures of cars driving down roads and stuff like that. It's like a movie on my eyelids. That's how I see it. If it's the pattern, it's kind of a psychedelic type thing. A lot of times it's diamond shaped and the diamonds are moving and stretching and changing shape.
Is it colorful?
It can be. A lot of times it's just black and white, but I think I've had some color too, I believe.
Okay. So when you talk about the cars, sometimes you see the cars driving. Is that different from like your visualization using your mind's eye? Is that a different thing or is that what?
It's like an old movie or like a home movie, like the Super 8 movies. It's kind of like that.
And you say you see it on your eyelids. You see the old movie on your eyelids?
Yes.
So that's different from using your mind's eye to imagine things. That's a different experience?
Yes. It's
That
got
is
a
wild.
different, it's got a really different texture to it. It's like I said, it's like an old movie. I can see even in my brain, I can see like it's going through sprockets and just kind of the little jitteriness of the projection.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so can you choose what's on that? It's just old cars, or can you change the image?
When I see it, a lot of times it's the old cars thing, but I've also seen trucks. I've seen airplanes. It seems to be travel related for whatever reason.
This is why I love doing this, is because I have never heard anybody say that before.
How long have you guys been doing Shane's Brain?
So the podcast has only been going since January,
Okay.
but I've been developing the questions and interviewing people for years and years and years.
It's been decades of this.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I've interviewed a lot of people with a lot of varying questions that have developed and changed over the years. But yeah, seeing a movie on your eyelids, that's a new one.
It's wild.
We have heard our fair share, but it's fun because no matter what, no matter how many things we think we've heard, there's always something that somebody says in every interview that's just like, never heard that before. That's new. It's pretty great.
All right. Is there always something visual going on in your mind? Does your visualization ever turn off?
It really depends on what I'm doing, because there are times I have to turn that visual part off so I can focus on what I have in front of me.
Okay, that makes sense. Can you think of nothing if you want to?
No, I'm not very good at that. If I'm not visualizing something, I've got a monologue inside my brain. Sometimes I even have a radio inside my brain.
Does your ability to visualize vary depending on circumstances, details, or events?
I would say if I'm tired, I'm going to have a harder time doing that, because my only desire when I'm tired is to crawl in bed and go to sleep.
Do you tend to visualize things you've already seen before, or do you tend to create new and unique images in your mind?
A lot of what I visualize is things that I've experienced. When you were talking about the Sri Lankan frogmouth?
Yeah.
That was just made up on the fly.
Can you visualize to the extent that it completely takes you out of your reality?
It's not something I can do very often, but I have done it.
Okay, can you explain what that was like?
It was very intense. In the visualization, there was another person with me. I could feel that person touch me. I could see where we were at. It wasn't where I was at. I could hear the person talking to me. And it was probably a good 20-minute long experience in what happened in that visualization. And it was really intense. But it was like I was getting a download, for lack of a better way of describing it.
All right. So when it comes to mind visualization, on a scale from 1 to 10, how much is it like actual seeing? How close is it to reality?
I would say a 7 or an 8.
So back to the apple real quick. You answered 4 on that. And the 5 and the 6 had a little bit more detail than the 4 did. So is that a pretty good representation, do you think, of kind of where you're at?
Good question.
It's just that sometimes people are having very different experiences depending on what we're asking about. So I just wanted to clarify if it was just because of the apple question or if in general.
I think it was more because of the apple question, because when we talked about like the farm scenario or the chicken scenario, I was able to get much more detailed.
All right, now we're going to switch over, talk a little bit less about the visualization. We're going to talk about mind audio. So
Okay.
first, do you have an inner voice or like an inner monologue or anything like that?
I have inner monologues all the time. I hear things. Now, I have had instances where it wasn't my voice telling me things. I would say it was God's voice.
Okay.
They talk about the small, still voice.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it was. It wasn't my voice, but it was a very small, quiet voice.
But it was audible? You feel like you heard it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That is super cool. Do you play out conversations in your mind?
Yes. It is.
Mhm.
There are times it's just like, you don't know that that's going to happen if you say that. Why are you doing this? All you're doing is torturing yourself.
Right. I totally get that. So when you do play out those conversations, are you hearing the different voices of the people involved in the conversation?
Sometimes.
Is there always something audible going on in your head? Does your mind ever shut up?
Only when I'm getting ready to go to sleep. There's a pretty constant dialogue in my head. And I think, honestly, that's trauma related.
So, but when you're going to sleep, it tends to shut off? Because I think you said with visualization, too, if you're really tired, that kind of shuts down.
I love to play this one game on my phone. And for whatever reason, it knocks me out. It just kind of stops the constant chatter in my brain. It's called Number Match. It's by Easy Brain.
So it sounds like it kind of like, this is the only way I can think of to say it, like kind of like strokes that analytical side of the brain, gets it focusing on something.
Yeah. And then eventually I get tired and I'm like, okay.
Are sounds automatically attached to your visualization, or do you feel like they're optional?
Optional.
So when it comes to mind audio, on a scale from 1 to 10, how much is that like actual hearing?
I would say maybe a 3.
Okay, so it's present and there, but it's not like real hearing.
No.
Okay.
You mentioned earlier that there's sometimes a radio in your head. Can you explain that, describe that?
I'll hear a song and it gets stuck in my head. You know that scene from The Wizard of Oz when they're going through the forest and they're going lions and tigers and bears, oh my. I had that stuck in my brain for about a week. And every time I would walk to and from class, it would be like lions and tigers and bears, oh my. Yeah, exactly. And it's annoying. There's a new song out by the Killers called Spirit that reminds me of a song from Trainspotting, and I'll get that stuck in my head. The Dua Lipa song from the Barbie movie gets stuck in my head.
Dad, she knows more about modern music than I do.
Well, you live under a rock.
Anything and everything. So.
No, I was raised by you. You raised me as an old soul.
I knew you were going to blame me for that one. All right.
Well, it is your fault. So
spread laughter all around with funny and witty t-shirts from Shane's Brain. Check out fan favorites like Once in a Blue Moon, Tired of Laundry, and the Ramalama Ding Dong shirts, all on shanesbraindomain.com. I want you to visualize that you are at a movie theater concession stand and they hand you a big tub of freshly popped buttery popcorn. Can you smell it in your mind?
I think what I'm perceiving is the memory of it.
Okay.
It's not the actual smell.
Okay. I have a lot of people tell me that it's more like a memory of it, not actual. And honestly, coming from my perspective, I have a hard time understanding that. If you have anything more to say on that, go ahead and say it. If not, I understand.
It's really interesting because sometimes I smell people, and this sounds really bizarre, but I smell people who are no longer with us. Like my dad, he would wash with the regular old Zest bar because at that time they didn't have 5,000 flavors of Zest. And he'd put Vitalis hair tonic on his hair. So it was this really weird mix of Vitalis and Zest. And there are times I can smell it.
Okay.
He's not here. There's nothing I don't buy Zest. And I sure as heck don't use Vitalis. So but I can smell it. And it's real.
So is that one memory based as well? Is it like you think of him and you smell it, or?
I can actually smell it. I can actually smell that.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
I propose we name this episode "Sometimes I Smell People." my new favorite line. Sometimes I smell dead people. That should be
I
the
smell
line.
dead people. Not I see dead people. I smell dead people.
All right. Back to the popcorn. Got the popcorn. Okay. What about taste? Can you taste it in your mind?
Yeah, I can taste it.
Okay. On a scale from 1 to 10, how real is that?
That's about a 6.
Very cool. And what about touch? Could you touch the popcorn, feel it in your fingers, feel it in your mouth? Can you get that sensation of touch in your mind?
I don't touch it. I mean, I can see it, but I don't. And I know I'm holding it, but I don't feel it. I don't feel it. Whereas when I was thinking about eating it, I could feel it on my tongue. And it was like my tongue was tingling because it was like, oh, we're getting popcorn.
So you couldn't feel it in your hands, but you could feel it in your mouth.
Yeah.
Huh.
Okay.
I don't think we've heard it that way before. I'm wondering if that's like experience based, if just like the sensation of like popcorn in your mouth is more like unique and present in your mind than feeling it with your hands. What I'm wondering is if there's anything you could mentally feel with your hands, like if you imagined getting like pricked by a needle or something, if you could feel that in your mind.
Or maybe something you're super familiar with.
I can't think of anything right now that I can feel with my hands.
So in general, that's probably not something you experience a whole ton, is the sensation of touch in your mind. Okay.
Mm-mm.
In this episode, we will be referring to the carnival picture. If you would like to view the carnival picture to play along and better understand what we're talking about, you can find it at shanesbraindomain.com in the Aphantasia section. If you are unable to view the carnival picture, it is a picture of a carnival at dusk with bright lights adorning carnival games and rides, including a large Ferris wheel, with many people walking around. All right. Do you have that carnival picture handy that I sent you?
Of course I do. You told me to have it ready.
Thank you. All right. Can you put yourself in that picture?
No.
Okay. Most visual people, in fact, I think you may be the first one. Aphantasia people, they always say no to that question, but most people who can visualize say yes to that. So do you have any explanation of why you can't do that?
This is really weird, but the reason why, it has to do with the Ferris wheel.
Okay.
And the reason why I say it has to do with the Ferris wheel is if you look at that Ferris wheel, the wheel is too high off the ground. I don't know if this is AI generated or what.
Yeah, it is. It's AI.
But the Ferris wheel is too high off the ground. So therefore, it's not as real. I noticed that the first thing when I opened this picture, I'm like, that Ferris wheel is way wrong.
Okay, that's why I wanted to probe this, because I love that, because those kind of things happen all the time where in a different circumstance, you probably would be able to do it. But because something's wrong, there's like a block there.
Yeah.
Yeah, because my dad was the same way. If something didn't make sense to him, he couldn't visualize it. And that's kind of what I'm getting the feeling here is like, there's something wrong with that picture. It's not real enough. So you're struggling putting yourself in it.
Part of it is that I'm a photographer, so I really notice those kinds of things.
That's weird because I'm looking at it right now and it looks perfectly fine to me.
No, okay, so if you look at the bottom of the Ferris wheel, you should be able to see the deck underneath the Ferris wheel. And you can't see the deck.
You know, the deck is just hidden by the things.
It's too low, though. The deck should be up higher because people have to get out of the chair and onto the deck. I'm saying that picture's wrong, dude.
Okay, I'll believe you.
Okay, so before we move on, you feel like if it was any other picture, you would be able to put yourself in there.
All right, I gotta stop staring at this carnival picture for a second. now you've got me trying to figure out whether the picture is wrong or my brain is wrong. Okay, so we're gonna talk about reading now. Are you a fan of reading?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. When you read a novel, is it like a movie in your mind or something else?
Like a movie. Yeah.
Okay. How well do you visualize the characters, details, and surroundings?
Pretty well. Let's put it this way. I don't watch scary movies because my brain can't handle it, but I can read scary books, which is really weird. But, like The Stand, for example, Stephen King's The Stand, I could picture that pretty well.
And things are pretty detailed. The characters have detailed, unique faces or...
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think that the difference between the horror movie and reading horror is that maybe you have control in your mind of how graphic things are or anything like that? Do you think maybe that's the distinction?
Yeah, I think that's a good distinction. Okay. Now, what's really interesting in all of this is if it's true crime, no problem. It has to do with the graphicness of it. It's like somehow my brain, if I read it, can make it tolerable. So I've never seen Silence of the Lambs. I've read, though, the prequel to Silence of the Lambs. I can't remember the name of the book.
Loudness of the Turkeys?
No, I don't know.
I'm sorry, that was a dumb joke.
It's about a red dragon. I could handle the graphicness of the book, but I can't handle the movie.
So when you're reading a book, do you hear the sounds and voices in your mind?
I can, yeah.
Okay. Is there any narration that happens for you?
You mean like somebody's reading it to me?
Like you can hear narration in your mind, either your own voice or another voice.
I don't hear narration. I mean, I read the words, but I don't hear the narration. There isn't a voice that's like, and the sand vibrated as the worm slid over it.
Okay. What about audiobooks? Do you like audiobooks?
Don't listen to audiobooks.
Have you ever tried?
No, honestly. I was a voracious reader when I was a kid. I mean, I read anything and everything. I was reading adult level books when I was in the 5th grade. I like being able to just read and not hear anything else. I can't work with a podcast on, for example, because it captures my brain. And so I know people drive and listen to audiobooks. I would love to be able to do with that, but I'd probably have an accident, to be honest. Music doesn't bother me, but I think that would.
Okay.
All right. We already talked a little bit what you do to fall asleep, but what about dreams? Are your dreams in color?
Yeah, generally they are.
Okay. How vivid and detailed are your dreams?
Oh, they can be really vivid and detailed. I have had dreams where I'm in a bar and there's lots of little monsters all over the bar and they want to take my money.
Oh, you mean the government?
I know why it was, because at that point in time, it was when Enron happened and it just totally tanked the economy in Houston and nobody could find a job. And it was just horrible.
Are your dreams in first person or third person?
Usually first person.
Other than visual, do you experience any of the other senses in your dreams?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Which ones?
There's touch. I've had dreams where there are fuel trucks going down the road and I can hear and feel the fuel trucks and the little rumble that comes with them.
Okay. So it sounds to me like your dream experience is a little bit different from how you visualize when you're awake. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. A little bit more vivid, more intense.
More fantastical.
Okay.
All right, we're going to talk about memory. If you want to recall a memory, can you see it in your mind?
Yeah.
Do you experience your memories in first person, third person, or both?
I would say first person.
Then does it feel like you're reliving the memory or something else?
When I went and got my grandma for my 50th birthday, I can remember going into her house and getting her. She had dementia, Alzheimer related dementia, actually. And by that time, she wasn't taking good care of herself. And I can remember like, oh, this is not good. All of the emotions and things like that I can remember.
How would you describe how your mind stores information?
I've always called my brain the Rolodex.
Okay.
Because
can you describe what that's like?
It's like having a giant card catalog, kind of. I remember the things that are important to people. And so I will turn it to my person that I'm thinking about or doing something with. And I will say, oh, yeah, this person likes this, this, and this. How can I get that to them if I can?
Okay, so Rolodex in your mind, it sounds very organized. So we have the term in our society, it's called search your mind. You feel like you can do that? Can you search your mind for certain things?
It'll be a progression of images, and then something will catch my attention. And that's when I start focusing in on that particular memory.
Okay, so do you associate your mind with an area or a space?
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
So does it feel like a space that you can either go into or look around in or explore?
I don't put it into like a room or anything like that. The Rolodex is how I organize it. And it's just a turn of the wheel and it flips through all the cards.
Okay. So if I asked you to like remember a fact that you learned in school, could you kind of like turn through that Rolodex and like find that fact? Or what does the Rolodex control? Is it just like information about people or all information you know or memories?
It's all information I know. It's all information I know.
Okay.
I've always thought of my brain as a Rolodex.
Okay. That's a really cool description, actually. Does how you visualize affect how you perform in your career and hobbies?
Yes and yes.
Okay.
It affects my career in that when I'm visualizing, and it depends on what I'm working on, but when I'm visualizing data, I look for the patterns in the data. I look for the things that stand out that aren't doing what they're supposed to do. If I'm visualizing for photography or art, let's talk about photography because that's a really interesting one for me anyway. If you were to look at the back of my digital camera, you would see a black and white image. You don't see a color image. And I do that on purpose because I can see the tones in the image better, and that makes for a better photograph overall. So if I've got a good range of tones in that image and it's black and white, I know that when I turn on the color and pull it into Photoshop or Lightroom, I'm going to be okay and I've got room to play. But if it's blown out white or too dark because I don't have enough light, then I know I'm not going to be able to recover that picture. I learned to see black and white as a good judge of what my images are.
You know, we've talked about a lot of cool things that your mind can do, a lot of talents that you have. What would you say are maybe some downsides to how your mind works?
There are days I have monkey brain where I can't turn it off. I tend not to have a filter. I've done really good tonight.
You can let Cole have it. He deserves it.
Hey.
No. But I mean, there are times I will just say what's on my mind. And I mean, I've got people at work that appreciate it. appreciate that about me, but there are people at work that don't appreciate that about me. And it's been a detriment sometimes. So no filter is not always a good thing.
Fair enough. Okay, last question. If you woke up tomorrow and had aphantasia, how do you think it would affect your life?
I think it would change how I do my job because I wouldn't be able to see the things that I see pattern-wise. There's always the technical part, so I may not lose the technical part of my art skills, but I might lose some of the composition things that are part of my art skills.
All right, very good. Well, that is it. Is there anything else you want to say before we sign off?
This has been really, really fun, and I want to I thank you guys because I didn't know what I was going to get into here, so I was just kind of like,
Yeah.
But no, I thank you guys because this was just really interesting. So where do I fall in this scale of yours, the 1 through 4 area?
I would say you're in the Aphantasia level. I don't think you rise to the hyperphantasia. Maybe in a couple things, but I think mainly you're just in that general Aphantasia realm. That's where Cole is as well.
Thanks for letting us discover your mind.
You're welcome. All right. You guys have a good evening.
You too.
You too. Good night.
Alrighty, bye-bye.
If you like what you hear, please subscribe, follow, and engage with us, and share it with your friends and family as we continue to explore this fascinating subject. For additional information about this episode or Shane's Brain, check out the show notes. Thanks for listening to the Discovering Your Mind podcast. You are beautifully unique.